I respect the Jews. I respect what they've done. They won the game. They have the power. We have to take the power back. They know who they are. They really have the sense of self. We're not going to take the power back by pointing the finger at the people that have it and complaining, but we have to empower ourselves. They know the stories. They know the religion. It's a sense of purpose. We're going to take the power from the people that have it by being smarter, better, more strategic, longer time horizon. Elon Musk is friends with Netanyahu. You're on his platform saying, we're going to take up pitchforks and torches. The Israelis are going to fucking Yale to learn about computer science and drones and AI. They're using their connections to rise up and get billions of dollars. You're kicking back with your gut hanging out. Fuck Israel. Some alcoholic. Fuck Israel again. Some fake poker player. Good morning. Fuck Israel. Some guy that got punched in the head too many times. Daily reminder. Fuck Israel. The Unit 8200 goes to El Segundo in Silicon Valley. They go to Stanford studying math. Do Talmud say, doing drink and rape all the kids? Do these anti-Semites, can they do addition? No. Can they do a multiplication table? No, they can't. These Jews are learning differential equations. They're learning computer science, getting involved in these companies. They have knowledge of manufacturing, industry, technology, finance. They make billions of dollars. Yeah, do you even have a pitchfork? Their will is reflected in government. We are the Greeks. We are the Roman. We are the explorers, pioneers, conquerors, industrialists, titans of industry, astronauts. Don't hate the player, hate the game. We create our own reality. When we act, we create our own reality. And people like you study that reality. And while you're studying that reality, we will act again and we will create more realities. And you can study those too. And that's how all of this will sort out. So that's that. It's good stuff.
Good evening and welcome to Stones and Thrones. My name is Nicholas A. Venna and this is my show. I analyze and talk about current events in society, culture, and political news in pursuit of the good things to which we can hold fast and build upon stone by stone until myself and like-minded individuals have thrones that last. The fundamental umbrella of political thought is not what the average person thinks it is. The average person thinks it's about, oh, I have good ideas for policy, or I have a good plan that will help with this problem, and this problem affects all of society, and so I want to run for office and share my ideas with people, and then see if I can get some buy-in, and then we'll get into office, and we'll start implementing these policies and do something good to the benefit of everybody and all Americans. And we'll be doing these good things that are consistent with the original vision of the country, the original vision and principles of democracy, the original vision and principles of not a monarchy, of freedom, of the ability to pursue your goals and your dreams without being stifled or oppressed by your government. And so the idea that the people make up the government, the ordinary person makes up the government, and that's kind of still in the public conscious for some reason. And that's not how it works. Nobody in politics is operating from a general umbrella of thought that, well, I can only win a political office and become a governor or a mayor or president or a leader or Congress or whatever. I can only do that if I bring something to the table. That's just absolutely not how it works at all. It's not how it works at all. That is a lie, and it's a super pervasive lie. It's a very effective lie. It's a very common sense lie to put out there. But the reality is, people in politics are no different than the people who run your homeowners association. Picture them. How many of you live in an HOA? And how much do you hate your HOA? How obvious is it to you that the people who do it, the people who make up these HOA boards, are there to advance their own personal interests, and they will absolutely make a policy that affects everybody in a community, everybody in an entire association, based purely off of their own petty, arbitrary preference. They will govern what colors are acceptable to paint your home with based off the colors that they have already or want on their home. They will govern what it takes to be an acceptable contractor performing work in the area based off which of their friends perform which duties or possess which skills or are in what do they call those things? Those vocations or crafts? I know there's another word, I can't think of it. Now it's going to bother me. I won't even be able to function. I won't even be able to think. Trades. They're going to set policy that benefits their friends based off what trades they have connections with. Everybody knows this. They all know it. Those are the people who take the time to go volunteer and do these things. Now, yes, it's different when you're volunteering for it versus when you get paid for it, but you still don't understand because with politics, they're not really going there just because they're getting paid. Because they can't even win office without the financial backing of super wealthy people who can get them there. So it's not their salary that they're working for, practically speaking, as much as the whole package of everything they get for doing the bidding of the people who financed their success. So it's a game. It's that very small select group of people who have the power and the resources to get people elected. It's those people's interests that are being served, and so that's their sport. Right? They would say that horse racing was the sport of kings, right? Why? Because horses are super expensive, especially a prize breed of a horse. And then training it is super expensive. Finding someone who can ride it is not cheap. There are a lot of expenses associated with the sport of horse racing. So it's considered the sport of kings. Well, in modern society, politics is the sport of kings. And the kings are the wealthy, the oligarchs, not the bloodlines of the monarchs of old. Which should also not surprise anybody because we are capitalist, right? Capitalist is a philosophy about what's best when it comes to an economic system, which is 100% about money. An economy is about money. It's about the flow of money. It's about the growth of money. It's about the timing of money and where it flows at what point in time and the effect that that has in a practical and in a logistical sense on the industries that are trying to blossom within an economy. So the lifeline of economy is money. The bloodline of an economy is money. The way there's an economy of grace in the story of salvation and trying to save souls is money is basically the world's version of that. So when you have a society that is governed at the highest level by an economic philosophy, right? It's not just like, oh, the economic system of America is capitalist. It's like, no. Capitalism is the economic philosophy that governs America itself. It wasn't exactly supposed to be that way, but that is the way that it is. And in some ways, it was intended to be that way because that was sort of the concept going back to the beginning where we started with freedom. Freedom is about freedom to do what? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like nothing should impose on my life that shortens it or diminishes it or hinders it. Why? Because the full expression of my life is in liberty, meaning I get to do what I want. And what do I want to do? Well, that's governed by the philosophy of capitalism. I should do whatever maximizes my own wealth. And I am competing with everybody else to do the same. And the idea is if they offer a widget, well, I've got to offer a better widget or the same widget for less money, or I've got to be able to produce more of them faster. However the competition goes. And the philosophy is that when the merchants are competing and the producers are competing to offer the best value to the average citizen, then the average citizen gets choice and the best value. So nobody should impede on my life. Nobody should impede on my liberty. And the pursuit of happiness is quite literally defined, measured in terms of money. Americans definitely operate from the perspective of the more money I have, the happier I'll be. It doesn't matter how many times or illustrations there are that's not exactly the case. That's how they believe, and that is the governing philosophy of the country. So first, America is capitalist. It is a system whose ethos is an economic one, and that drives everything else. I mean, hell, when did they revolt? When did they decide, right? The Tea Party is a great example. The actual Tea Party, what did they do? They got all pissed off that there was going to be these taxes without representation, and so they threw the tea in the water. Like, we'd rather throw it away than give you something for nothing. So even before you had the full-blown American system that you have now, as its brand new separate country fighting the monarchies off, it still came down to money. And that's kind of how the world has always turned. I mean, that was why the Romans, like we just talked about, the Arch of Titus, where they're memorializing and commemorating the destruction of the temple and pillaging all the booty and carrying that home, all the gold, everything that was precious and valuable. So that's not like brand new. That's not like an American thing. I'm not going against America by pointing that out. I'm just helping frame all of this in the context of what the real impetus and the spirit that motivates people that are nowadays involved in politics and why they would want to get involved in politics, so that I can help you to understand how they look at the competition. And the way the competition breaks down is very simple. They look at the electorate and they say, how many vote? So of everybody that votes, I've got an opponent. So of everybody that votes, how can I get more votes than the person I'm running against? And then all the different ways that I can do that. Can I get people to vote who didn't historically vote? Well, that would drive up my numbers. Can I get people to vote for me who historically would not have voted for my political party? That's one way to do it. And then that just breaks down into more and more, scientific and empirical analysis of the demographics. Like, who's discontent and why? If this identity group, if blacks vote this way, well, why do they vote that way? And if whites vote this way, why do they vote that way? And if Hispanics or Latinos vote this way, why do they vote that way? If men vote this way, why? If women another way, why? If this age group votes such a way or that age group, the whole thing is demographic. And all they're doing is analyzing their ability to get you to vote for them. That's what they focus on. How do I get the voters to vote? So if you're in a group that doesn't vote, they don't care. Unless they can get you to vote. And then by default, vote for them. That's what drives politics. So there's this indirect derivative effect that some of society's concerns are responded to in politics and by politicians. Sometimes it happens indirectly in the rare instance where they might need to identify a problem for which a solution has not yet been presented, and then come up with a solution that's satisfactory to the people whose votes they want to earn, and then perform in a way that pleases them enough to motivate them to go vote. But in the vast majority of cases, that's more work than it's worth. It's much easier for politicians to just cut you into pieces, get you hypersensitive to any one particular issue or another. Sometimes it's easier to get you to vote against their opponent than it is to get you to vote for them. And then the whole thing gets super complicated. So it is interesting to see that there's data that's been available since January that is being reported on and talked about now as if it wasn't available at that time. And it's also interesting to see that there's data that's relevant that has been available since January that they're not talking about at all, and data that's probably been relevant for the better part of a couple of years. And that's not coming out there at all. But what is true and real and still very substantial is the fact that there are a lot more and more people in politics, in the political machinery, in the GOP and on the right-wing pipeline that are identifying with and supporters of Nick Fuentes, which means really like they watch his show and they like his show and they like him. All of that is fantastic news for Nick. In a just direct and concrete sense, it's all really good news for him. It's not clear whether or not any of these people really understands if or in what ways it might be good news for them, or if what they consider to be good news for themselves is actually even really of any value other than just the psychological of like, my guy won. That's not really clear. But what does matter the most is it's going to make life in the country different. Things are not going to stay the way that they are. One way or the other, that ideology, the persona that is Nick Fuentes, that is gaining more and more steam, is going to change and already is changing the way that things are done. And I think that's probably the most concrete, even though it doesn't strike the way that you would want it to strike to really see like a change in the terrascape. The fact that J.D. Vance won't denounce him or the Groypers is actually a big deal, because it means that doing so, at least as far as J.D. Vance is concerned, affects his ability to win an election. And if he believes that, and remember, Vance is friends with Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel is one of the at least original financial backers of Rumble. So I know a lot of people got all crazy about that. And to me, it was like, that made no sense at all. Like when they came in, well, I can understand. Yeah, I can understand. But it just shows you the way the power structures work. When they go to who is it at first? Nick's basically, destroyed at some point. He's not allowed anywhere online. Can't be on YouTube, can't be on Facebook, can't be on Twitter, can't be on Twitch or Kick. Like pretty much just banned everywhere. And there would have been no way to recover from that. Like, well, what's he going to do? Even if he starts his own website, then at some point, if he had enough growth, then he would be having to deal with whatever companies are hosting the show. The actual, whatever companies own the physical servers. So then what, when that group or that company gets some type of political pressure of, why are you letting this guy on your servers? Why are you housing his show? Then what, he needs to build his own data center. He needs to build his own server center. It would have been almost impossible. No one would have been able to pressure anybody, let alone someone like Elon Musk or Peter Thiel, to platform Nick Fuentes. That was not about like free speech or opening up the discussion, because no one could have done that. How are you going to make Elon Musk do something he doesn't want to do? How are you going to make Peter Thiel do something he doesn't want to do? How are you going to put Nick on X or on Rumble, which is where he's at right now, and nobody take him down? Well, because it means that somebody big enough and strong enough to resist and oppose the ones that were big enough and strong enough to censor and excommunicate Nick from the public sphere to begin with. So the forces behind or motivating like Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and everything to get rid of Nick to begin with, obviously there was an equal and opposite force that could withstand that pressure. And the only clues you have is Musk because he owns X and Peter Thiel because he seems to be the primary force behind Rumble. And then from that perspective, it's like obvious. It's obvious. Why would they do that? Well, because of the data. Would you not want, you can see how pervasive, you can see, forget all that. You can just see how successful Nick is and how good he is at what he does and how much people like him. You can see how much, most of all, Gen Z likes him. It's almost like you couldn't even afford not to platform him. I'm kind of astonished that it took so long. There is hubris involved and there's hatred involved on the part of his enemies. But now you're just saving face by not letting him on YouTube. Who wouldn't want the data analytics of every single person who signs up or creates a Rumble account to watch him or follows him on X? Who wouldn't want that? You don't want to see, like, what does he have on X? Over 1 million followers? You don't want to see the data for 1 million people and using all of your AI sentiment analyzers to be like, all right, what is the exact demographic of the 1 million people or 2 million people that are following him? How do they break down? What are they by age group? What's their ethnicity? What's their gender? Are they male or female? And then start cross-pollinating that data with like everything that that same account does on X. You wouldn't want to know, like, how does every single follower of Nick's on X or on Rumble interact with the whole rest of the political world? And not just how do they interact with the rest of the political world, outside of the political world, who else do they interact with? Are they really into NASCAR? Are they into sports? Are they into college football versus the NFL? Are they into soccer? Are they into baseball? Who else do they follow? Who are these people in support of and antagonistic towards? And what's the correlation? But how likely is a Candace Owens follower to like Nick Fuentes? How likely is a Tucker Carlson follower to like Nick Fuentes? How likely is the intersection of Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens to like or not like Nick Fuentes? I mean, that data is priceless. You could literally reshape a culture with that data. And now just those two groups have it. This light says it's time to sign off. We'll develop this thought even more, but for right now, what's the takeaway? Yeah, people should be taking very seriously, one way or the other, the growth and progress of Nick Fuentes and what he's done and his ideology, Catholics in particular. And regardless of where you land on it, I like him. I still think he's the best. I don't know anything about him as a person except for what, through my own means, I could ascertain. And I would have no reason to share that with anybody. But I like, when I say I like him, I like his show. I like what he's doing. I like what he's accomplishing. And I think it's good for me. And I think it's good for people that are like-minded. And from what's obvious and available to everybody about him as an actual person, right? Because I don't know him personally. I've never met him personally. But as far as you could gather about him as a person based off what's readily available, I actually like him as a person. I don't have any problem, generally speaking, with what he does. And when I say I don't have a problem, as is the case with myself and anybody else, all of us is a package deal. The best of us and the worst of us. The best of each of us and the worst of each of us as individuals. The best and worst that exists within each and every one of us as individuals. There's no way for me to be looking at Nick Fuentes and then somehow saying, oh, I don't like him, but I like somebody else. Like, really? Who do you like? What politician do you like? And what could you possibly not like about Nick Fuentes that doesn't exist in the same or some worse form than anybody else out there. So I'm not qualifying the fact that I like him even based off what I could see as a person. I'm just making it clear that that's not the biggest thing that's going on here. That's the least accessible thing of the whole phenomenon, is him as a person. What's accessible is the ideology that he promotes, the number of people that are following him and like him and refuse to cancel him, the manner in which that group and those demographics are growing within themselves vertically and expanding horizontally to include other demographics. It's not just young people anymore, if it ever was. It's not just white people anymore, if it ever was. It's not just males anymore, if it ever was. It's not just Christians or Catholics anymore, if it ever was. And I don't believe it ever really was. I think it's always been a broad range of people who, and here's, I guess, the only hint I can give as to where we're going, the broadest and most discernible unifying principle of the demographic that continues to expand is a distrust of government and a contempt, a vehement contempt for what has become of American governance, and the appetite to see it crushed radically and fantastically, vengeance inflicted upon the ruling class, contempt for what has become of the American government and leadership all across the board, coast to coast, from the lowest level to the very top. There is no more of the people, by the people, for the people. And people hate that. So I'd have to part on pointing out that Nick himself has made it clear that he has no intention to try to rally a populist movement so that the reins of government is taken over in the interest of the people's will. You only need a very limited, but a very capable, very motivated core group of people to take the reins of government and then do with it whatever you want. Reflect on that, and you'll understand what's happening right before your eyes and why it should matter to you. Most of all, if you're Catholic men who believe in family and any of the fundamental values that was supposed to be advanced by freedoms and liberty and an uninhibited pursuit of happiness and the God-given rights that were articulated in our founding documents. Thanks for watching. Peace out.